Welcome to the show. Claudia Reese, I want to start with a scene a lot of families know in their bones. It's 11:40 p.m., somebody's in the hospital, somebody else is whispering in a hallway, and suddenly the question is not, what do we want for the future? It's, wait, who has the paperwork? Who knows the meds? Who can access the bank account? And what happens on Monday?
That Monday part is the knife edge, not the big abstract future. Monday. Who's handling transportation, refills, the support worker call out, rent, the fact that your adult child only sleeps if the hallway light is left on? Families often start planning in crisis, and crisis is the most expensive project manager on earth. It narrows options fast.
That is such a Claudia Reese sentence. But it's true. We tell ourselves planning is for later because later feels kinder. Like, if I love my kids hard enough, if I show up enough, if I keep the whole spinning circus balanced, that somehow counts as a plan. And love matters, obviously. Love is the engine. But love without a plan can still leave somebody exposed.
Yeah, and I think families hear future care planning and picture a lawyer's office, a stack of forms, maybe a terrifying invoice, so they delay it. But this is bigger than law. It's care, money, health, housing, and communication. It's not one document. It's an operating system.
An operating system is a great way to put it. Not a single form in a fancy folder. More like the recipe, the grocery list, and the oven temperature. Which, as a man who has murdered more than one sourdough loaf, I can tell you matters. You cannot just hand somebody flour and say, "Good luck, you'll feel my love in the gluten."
Feel my love in the gluten is awful and memorable. But yes, that's the point. If one parent knows every detail and the other people around the disabled person know almost none of it, then the plan is trapped in one human being. That's not resilient.
I had a moment like that a few years ago. Nothing catastrophic, thank goodness, but enough to rattle me. I was trying to explain one of my kids' routines to someone helping out. The order of things, the sensory stuff, what "I'm fine" actually means, when it definitely does not mean fine. And I realized I was translating an entire world on the fly. Preferences, triggers, calming routines, medications, which cup, which song, which phrase helps, which phrase absolutely does not. I remember thinking, if I had to explain this in a parking lot in 3 minutes, we'd all lose.
The 3-minute parking lot test. That's going to stick with me. Because that's when families discover they don't just need legal authority, they need shared knowledge. They need a way for another person to step in without flattening the disabled person's routines, comfort, or autonomy.
Right, and I want to say this carefully because I know this topic can feel heavy. Planning is not giving up. It's not inviting disaster in. It's the opposite. It's saying, you matter too much to leave your future to guesswork. That's a very loving sentence, even if it comes with a filing cabinet.
And if you're listening and thinking, we should have started years ago, okay, no shame. Start where you are. The bad pattern is waiting for the crisis that forces every decision at once. The better pattern is making a few decisions while everyone can still breathe, think, and ask better questions. So let's get concrete. There are a few core tools families hear about over and over. Powers of attorney, guardianship or conservatorship in some situations, special needs trusts, and ABLE accounts. Same neighborhood, very different jobs.
Wait, grab the first pair for me. Power of attorney and guardianship get tossed around like they're interchangeable, and I know they are not the same animal.
Exactly. Different animal, different leash length. A power of attorney is a legal authorization. Someone is given authority to act in certain areas, like finances or health decisions, depending on the document. Guardianship or conservatorship is generally more restrictive and usually involves court oversight. The key idea is level of control and level of court involvement are not the same.
So if I'm hearing you right, and let me say it back slightly wrong so you can rescue me, Power of attorney is more like delegated help, while guardianship or conservatorship is a bigger legal intervention, often through the court when that level of support is actually necessary.
That's much closer than wrong. And the reason families need individualized advice here is that the right tool depends on capacity, actual needs, and what preserves the most autonomy while still keeping the person safe and supported. More control is not automatically better. Sometimes it's just more restrictive.
That sentence, more control is not automatically better, should be on a mug, a t-shirt, maybe tattooed on my forehead backwards, so I see it in the mirror. Because families can slide into protective mode and accidentally erase choice.
And then there are the money tools, which are where timing really matters. Means-tested benefits like Medicaid and SSI can be affected if assets are inherited or transferred the wrong way. That's the concrete risk. A well-meaning grandparent leaves money directly to a disabled person, or someone transfers assets without understanding the rules, and support can be put in jeopardy.
That well-meaning grandparent example is exactly why this stuff sneaks up on families. Nobody is trying to cause harm. They're trying to help. But a direct inheritance can land like a gift-wrapped problem if it disrupts Medicaid or SSI.
Right. And this is where generic estate planning can fail disabled families. A standard will might make perfect sense in one household and create chaos in another. That's why specialized legal advice matters. Not just a lawyer, but someone who understands disability benefits and planning.
Okay, special needs trusts. There are two phrases people hear, first party and third party. Give me the plain English version.
Third-party special needs trusts are generally funded with someone else's assets: parents, grandparents, other relatives. First-party special needs trusts are funded with the disabled person's own assets. That's the core distinction. Whose money is it before it goes into the trust?
Whose money was it first? That's the handle. I like that. It's one of those distinctions that sounds tiny until it absolutely isn't.
Yes, because the type of trust shapes how planning works. And either way, the purpose is not just hoarding money in a vault somewhere. It's structuring support in a way that can help protect eligibility for means-tested benefits while still providing resources for the person's life.
Not a vault, a framework. That's helpful. And then able accounts sit nearby, but they do a different job, right?
They do. Able accounts can offer more spending flexibility for qualified expenses. So, if a special needs trust is one strategic tool, an able account can be another practical tool for day-to-day life. Families sometimes need both in the overall plan because flexibility matters.
That word, flexibility, is the whole ballgame. Because a life is not built out of legal categories. It's built out of rides, food, tech, therapies, rent, routines, and all the little costs that show up like raccoons in your trash. Unexpected and very committed.
Very committed. And I want to underline the limit side here. No single tool does everything. A power of attorney doesn't replace a trust. A trust doesn't tell a caregiver what breakfast routine works. An able account doesn't answer housing oversight. These tools are parts, not the whole machine.
And timing matters, because once assets are transferred or inherited the wrong way, you're fixing a problem instead of preventing one. That's the part I want listeners to hear without panic. Early planning gives you more clean options. Last-minute planning is like trying to redesign the house while the sink is flooding.
Exactly. Not hopeless, just harder. More stress, fewer choices, more room for expensive mistakes.
So once the paperwork conversation starts, I think the next move is the human move. Who are the people? Because a future care plan is not just a binder, it's a circle of care. Family, friends, siblings, neighbours, professionals, whoever can reliably hold a piece of the net.
The phrase circle of care matters because it gets us out of the fantasy that one heroic person will do everything forever. In infrastructure, If a whole system depends on one point of failure, we call that bad design. Same here. You want named people, actual roles, contact information, and realistic expectations.
Named people is the key. Not Aunt Lisa loves him, but Aunt Lisa can handle medical appointments and knows the pharmacy. Not our neighbour is wonderful, but Mr. Chen has a key and knows what to do if the support worker doesn't arrive by 8 a.m. Vague love is lovely. Specific responsibility is better.
And that folds into one of the most practical documents families can create, a letter of intent. Not the same as a legal instrument, more like a guide for the people who may need to step in. Routines, preferences, communication style, important history, what helps, what escalates things, who to call, what the person values.
I love the phrase, what the person values. Because if your document only says medications and diagnoses, you've described a chart, not a human being. Put in the favourite foods, put in the sensory preferences, put in the fact that she needs 10 minutes before transitions, put in that he says later when he means no. Those details can prevent a bad day from becoming a terrible one.
And housing. Families sometimes say, we'll figure housing out later. But housing isn't just an address. It's maintenance, oversight, money, safety, transportation. Who notices if the fridge is broken? Who checks whether the support plan is actually being followed? A housing plan without maintenance and oversight is basically a sketch on a napkin.
That fridge is broken detail is perfect because that's the real world. Not just where someone sleeps, but who notices the slow leak, the expired food, the missed bill, the broken ramp light. Dignity lives in those details too.
Here's a practical way to start if the whole topic feels enormous. Don't begin with the hardest legal question. Begin with one page. Who are the key contacts? What are the daily routines? What medical information has to be known? What communication preferences make support better? Then build from there with professional guidance on the legal and financial tools.
One page is so much less scary than solve the rest of your life by Thursday. And starting early helps the conversation stay compassionate. You can say, I want to understand what matters to you. I want your voice in this. That's very different from waiting until everybody's scared and speaking in bullet points.
I think that's the hidden gift of doing this before a crisis. It gives disabled people and families more room for choice, more room for confidence, more room to revise the plan as life changes, because it will change.
And maybe that's the reframe I want to leave people with. Future care planning can sound like preparing for absence, but really, it's preparing for continuity. It's asking, if the people who love me can't be there in the same way someday, how do we make sure my dignity, my choices, my rhythms, my life keep going?
Not just protected, recognized.
Recognised. That's the word. Thanks for being here with me, Claudia Reese.
Always. And if you're at the beginning of this conversation, beginning counts.